Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. I am Charles Cole. That's David Castillo. Jube is in some traffic, but she'll be joining us a little later. And our boy Omar is out, being a superhero or something in some part of the country or world where we don't know where he is. So we hope he's well now. He's going to be out for the rest of the month, but it's some work stuff. But sends his love, still partakes and helps build out the shows. So we wish him the best of luck, and he'll be back before you know it. How you doing today, David?
I am doing great. I'm doing great. Had a busy day, busy start to the week. And it's still dealing with we've got like this extended heat wave down here, man. So it's still like in the 90s down here.
Oh, wow.
But also paying attention to like what's going on across the country, obviously, with this second hurricane. It's about to make landfall. And I've got family down there on the Gulf Coast of Florida, right where this thing is going to hit. So we just been talking with them.
They rise up a little bit too. Like, so the first one that hit a few days ago, I used to live in Kentucky. I have family there.
Yep.
I don't think it hit them too. It hit some parts of Kentucky. Like it got up. We had some storms, but it wasn't. Yeah, man, it's a lot. We actually are starting a new national cohort, and a few of the young people had to miss because they didn't have power and things like that. So
yeah, it's gonna be a crazy couple days. So
yeah,
hope for the best. Yeah, man.
Well, I'm good as well, man. I'm very interested in this topic today because it definitely has some personal connection just from where I was born and where I currently live. But I also think this will be interesting for you, David, just in the work that you've done before and what we've done and had to kind of deal with before. So I don't know if we've ever dealt with this, though. So let me just go ahead and introduce it. So I want to welcome you all officially to the South Star Classroom, where we break down the story shaping education in our communities. Today, we're diving headfirst into the chaos happening right now in Chicago public schools. In a move that's left the city stunned, the entire school board has resigned, setting the stage for a showdown between Mayor Brandon Johnson and CPS CEO Pedro Martinez. What's behind this mass exodus? Is it a political grab, or are there deeper issues at play? We're here to unpack this power struggle, the politics, and most importantly, what it means to Chicago students and families. So let's get into it. This is a moment that could change the future of education in Chicago forever, and it is happening right now. So for those out there that don't know, CPS CEO Pedro Martinez was appointed by the former mayor before she lost re-election. And the other thing to know is that Chicago, David, is going through a bit of a change. So for the most part, they've been all appointee type of school board. So Oakland, where we live, is all democracy. You have to run, and it's actually separated from the mayor's office. But there are places where education is directly tied to the mayor's office. DC is one of those places. Chicago is another. What's going to happen is these resignations. So there's going to be a new type of school board for everybody listening, okay? These resignations pave the way for a new partially elected 21-member school board set to take effect in January 2025. The current member's decision to step down is viewed as a preparatory step for this transition. So the mayor will get 11 seats on the new school board format, and 10 will be elected. 11 and 10. So that was a lot for you right there. Before I get even into just the first question, well, I can go into the question, but let's just talk about that setup of school board. And again, Chicago is huge. It's definitely not the size of an Oakland. It is huge. So there might be some understanding there. But what do you think about that school board makeup and those new rules?
Oh wow, yeah, great topic. And this is definitely like an area where we are going to nerd out a bit. Mm-hmm. But I did a little bit of research going back because I wanted to better understand this appointed school board situation. And it's a huge school board, right? We're used to like 7, 8, 9, 10. And I think the school board is what, 21, 22?
It will be 21. It was 7.
Okay. Yeah. So it's getting bigger too. But I guess the school boards historically were not appointed. I think this started in 1995 under the direction of then Mayor Richard Daley, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as the city went through like this shift towards a more strong mayor position, that's when the transition happened. Because we're used to seeing school boards that might be democratically elected but have no power in California as a result of like a state takeover. So I just did a little bit of like, sleuthing to figure out what was going on in Chicago. I think it's a mess. And I think Chicago, not just Chicago, the city, but what do they call it? Chicagoland, right? The huge.
Yes, I live in Chicagoland. So Chicagoland is like, it's like saying the Bay Area.
Yeah. It's a massive area. And I don't know how much, how large Chicago public schools is compared to Chicagoland. Probably not the entire thing, but
it's significant though. I mean,
it's the third largest school district in the country.
It's significant. I mean, it's really, really large. And Chicagoland is like big as well. So I live in like a village. So villages are so small. Like our mayor is a part-time mayor. And like we are partnered with a bunch of villages to have a district, which is a number, right? But the difference here is like in San Francisco, it's like just a little bit, but Chicago is more like New York than San Francisco in the sense of things in Chicago, even if you don't live in Chicago, have a massive impact on the rest of the state. Like it's a huge one. Like there's a lot of stuff that might go on with the San Francisco school district, but it doesn't impact Oakland as much. You know what I mean? Like Oakland kind of has its own thing, but like New York is like that. Like New York State, like whatever is happening in New York City, it kind of impacts, especially that larger New York area, right? So I just think it's interesting, man. So yeah, I just getting your take on it is just interesting to me because, like, have you ever heard of such a thing? One, have you heard of the entire board leaving at the same time? The other thing is this board came from him. This was his board. Like, and so maybe we should dig into this a little bit, right? Let me give a summary. So all 7 members of the Chicago Board of Education have resigned, making a significant shift in Chicago public schools governance model. So we're going to just say CPS moving forward, right? Mayor Brandon Johnson appointed 6 new members following the resignations, with 1 position that remains to be filled. And he's had these tensions with the former CPS CEO. And here's the thing. Both of these are Democrats, okay? So Mayor Lightfoot is Democrat, and so is Brandon Johnson, Mayor Johnson. They're both Democrats. So I don't want somebody to think, oh, well, maybe it was a Republican person and now there's a Democrat or vice versa. No, same party. And he was an activist. Brandon Johnson was a big activist in the wake of Chicago having to close about 50 some odd schools about 10 years ago under Rahm Emanuel. So this is one of his claim to fame a little bit, right? Like it's something that he's known for. You and I have dealt with folks that like when schools have to close, and during that time, a lot of schools had to close because the money just wasn't there. So, so these developments come as CPS and Johnson face ongoing labor negotiations with Chicago's teachers union and financial challenges that further complicate the district's future leadership and policies. Again, unbiased here. Oakland, I'm using Oakland because I know Oakland, and we talk about it a lot on this show. Oakland Unified Schools has its own budget. It has its own pension. It is theirs and solely theirs. Now it's a mess at times, but it's their mess. Chicago, it's a pot. So it's police, it's fire, it's education. And what has happened, and like and you can get wonkier on this if you want to, David, but I remember somebody working in OUSD was talking about CPS, who came from CPS, and was just saying, man, when the bill comes due on these pensions with all this stuff and can kicking, it's going to look like Armageddon. That was almost 10 years ago. All right. So what is happening is they are in the middle of fierce teachers union negotiations. Mayor Brandon Johnson is very, very close to the teachers union. Again, I say this with no malice. I say this with no judgment.
They elected him.
But people have their candidates, right? Sometimes there's a reform candidate. Sometimes there's a union candidate. So both sides put in a lot of money. or whatever the case is. Brandon Johnson's, this is the crazy part, David. The people that he trusted, that he rocks with, we got to a point in the negotiations where the CPS CEO said, this is just not financially responsible. They can't get the money from the state to pay these pensions and pay these salary increases that they're going to do. I think they're probably arguing 44 or 5%, and the union wants 9% over year for the next 4 years. Don't quote me on that. I might be wrong. But they're not, those 5 or 4 points matter in these negotiations. And the board also sided with the superintendent and said, we don't have the money. So what Mayor Johnson proposed to do, David, was to go and get a high yield loan for $300 million, almost like a payday advance loan. Now, if you know about payday advance, I grew up in Black poverty. I don't know if this is in brown poverty, but you can let me know. But there are
same
check cashing places everywhere. And I had parents who didn't have a bank account, and they would go to the liquor store or the check cashing place to cash their check. One, they would charge you hella money. Here's the thing. You can take a payday loan, and if you are a day or so late on that loan, the interest rate is astronomical. So Chicago public schools could potentially be paying back more than double of the loan that they are proposing to take right now on behalf of the teachers. And his board said, no, we are fiscally liable for these decisions. And he said, well, the CEO of CPS needs to go. He asked him to resign a month ago. He declined. And then his friends in the board said, we're standing with the superintendent. And so they all in solidarity are leaving. That's like me appointing you, and you're like, me and everybody else that you brought to this party are leaving. That is where we are right now, and I have video for you later if you are ready for it. If you want to see it before or after the question, let's get to the question first, and I'll do it after the first question. But I know that was a big buildup, but I've never seen this before, David. Like, I've never seen it like this.
I don't think we ever have. Yeah. And before you go to the question, I also ask myself, like, so yeah, they're proposing this massive loan situation, right? Just to pay for your basic liabilities, not even like doing anything special, but just to like, it reminds me of what's happening in Oakland, California right now. Not to go down a rabbit hole, but like in Oakland, California right now. It's a good
case study because it's a smaller microcosm, but it's the same issue.
Yep. Same issue, but at the city level, where the city is running a massive deficit, huge in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're trying to basically do like some kind of like fuzzy math to make the numbers good. Mm-hmm. But eventually the liability is going to hit, right? There's going to be, at some point, the light at the end of the tunnel is going to like either be a light or a train, oncoming train. And it's similar because both of these situations, and you laid it out pretty well, in Chicago and in Oakland, have been driven by poor financial management and also pretty incredible, strong influence from organized labor around compensation, jobs, benefits, pensions, et cetera, that are just not like realistic. They're not real, right? And so, that's one thing that I thought about. The other thing, Charles, is I always figure, okay, well, maybe this, $100 million loan or whatever might make sense. But I look at over the last like couple of years in Chicago in particular, and granted, with COVID, we understand that like learning loss happened, and there were other issues, but historically in Chicago, young Black children have fared the worst in all like standardized outcomes, and they continue to, and they're getting worse, with Latino students just above them and white and Asian peers performing at higher levels. So, my question is like, what's going on in Chicago public schools while adults are like, fighting over money and resources? Historically speaking, young Black, young brown children continue to be left out of the conversation in terms of I wouldn't even say like low performing, underperforming.
Right.
Like there's just no accountability for the system to support these students. And it feels like you have these adults that are having these wrestling matches, but what about the kids? Like I go back to the hello,
Exactly.
Jubilee. Like what about the children?
Man, what about him? And welcome to our matriarch of the show. It's good to see you. You look great.
Hi, thank you. Welcome. Oh, look, me and Dave are matching a little here, huh? Fall, harvest. Come on.
That's right.
Well, we just jumped in. I definitely want to get your intro in a minute just to check in on you. But I just read what's going on in Chicago. I think you've been briefed on it. I am going to. Why don't you give us a quick check in? I'm going to get the video ready to show, and we'll go into the video after your check in. How's that sound?
Look at that. That's so beautiful. You're allowing me to check in.
Oh my God. Just hurry up and go. Jesus. David, I try to be nice. It's always, she only does it to me. She don't do it to y'all at all. Go ahead. Please.
They don't.
I wonder why.
Hi. Exactly. Thank you, Dave. No, listen, I'm great. It's been a long day. Been going and going and going, but it's on behalf of children and the people that serve them. So I'm like pumped, even though it's been a long day. And what is it? Whatever time it is, 6:17 p.m. EST. I'm good to go. Let's talk about it. What's going on with these school boards, and what are the implications for our work? I'm excited about today's convo.
I got you. Well, you all talked amongst yourselves a little bit longer. I'm just getting it queued up. So yeah, go ahead, David. You can kind of fill her in just on your initial thoughts about the craziness that's happening. Well,
yeah, I think
and get her initial thoughts, because I'm curious what her initial thoughts were just when she read everything.
Yeah. So based on what and I think the one thing I didn't say, which I'll say, is so the Chicago public school system is the third largest in the country, and I think these systems are just too big. They're so big, and they just end up becoming huge, massive bureaucracies that are essentially like bound for this kind of an outcome, right? Unless they're managed appropriately. This is a big story, and it's going to continue to be a big story. But Jubilee, I want to hear your thoughts. I don't know if you read the preparation materials, but what are your thoughts on this Chicago situation?
I mean, I glanced at it, so I didn't get to read everything. But something that you just said kind of stuck out to me, and that's about like how big the system is, right? The bigger the systems, right? The more need for more structures and more systems to govern the system. And I think my initial point or question is just around like how much of the stakeholder voice is in the system, is informing, what the system does. And I think that, well, they say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? I think by and large, maybe people that get into education on any side, right, probably have good intentions, maybe want to help, our future, our children, etc. But somewhere along the way, it's like it gets the vision, the mission, the purpose gets like jackhammered, slapped to the side. Ego takes over, arguing takes over, all the things take over that pull us further and further away from why we got into this, to begin with. And so anytime I see something like this disassembled, it's like, oh, we lost our way. Like, was the mission, the vision got watered down, like, and so now we're fighting over crumbs, we're fighting over what have you, and we're forgetting the true purpose for what has brought us together, which is ensuring that children get a high quality education and a shot at having a great future. So those are my initial thoughts.
Well, let's hear directly from Mayor Johnson himself, because he was pretty bullish, and I will present with no comment. It will mute you automatically, Jubilee. You ain't got to mute yourself, but it got it. No, you're good. Go ahead. It does. I'm just letting you know.
Are you trying to say the video is gonna mute me? You mute? Who's muting me?
The video normally does, but you're talking. But can y'all hear okay? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear it okay. All right.
I'm a man of my word. And that means bold leadership in a moment that doesn't nibble around the edges and look for incremental gain, Our people in this city are tired of political leaders that want the status quo to nibble around the edges, and then when children don't get what they deserve, they blame the very communities that they've disinvested in. Not on my watch. What's being carried out right now is my authority as mayor of the city of Chicago. If you want to know this, I am fulfilling the executive responsibility that is given to me by the state law. If you want to find out who CTU is endorsing, go ask the CTU. I'm not the CTU. I'm the mayor of the greatest freaking city in the world, the city of Chicago. Do you have a follow-up? But the fact that we have an entire state, an entire country where the school districts across America are hanging in the balance, and you have questions about my authority to do what the people of Chicago elected me to do. Those individuals should be ashamed of themselves. I have no doubt that the new board will continue and build on the progress using the 5-year strategic plan as we guide and collaborate with stakeholders, community partners, to bring about the transformation that this city deserves. And I'm proud to announce that we have our first iteration of my recommendations to be on this board and be a part of this transformation.
So,
Strauss.
yeah, so that was that. Before I get to the question, thoughts. Let's go to you first, David. We've seen some bullish mayors before. What were your thoughts on his commentary and where he stood on y'all asking him questions about if the CTU is the ones that are running these candidates or whatever? What's your thoughts?
I mean, I think when he says that, they're in this like 5-year strategic plan. I don't know what year they are in of the plan, but when he says stakeholders, I want to know like who are his stakeholders? Are they children? Are they parents and families? Is it the CTU? Is it the business community? Because we often say stakeholders, and it's such a big, broad blanket statement that when people just say stakeholders, like, if you have half a brain, like it's offensive, right? I think number two, I think it's a crazy amount of power for one person to have. And it reminds me of the old days of classic like Chicago or like New York, like machine politics, right? It doesn't smell good to me at all. And I will say, he's been pretty proactive and open about wanting to get rid of CEO of schools, Martinez. But I'm like, you all know, like imagine like applying for and being offered that job if Martinez goes, and then well, what happened to Martinez? Why is he no longer here? It's going to be almost impossible for them to find somebody of his caliber to fill that position because of the way this whole thing is going down, right? And so maybe he has a candidate. I'm sure he already has somebody in mind.
I'm
sure he does.
I feel like, well, he had his 6. It was 7 people that left. 6 were ready to go. Somebody probably wasn't feeling it, and he had to go ahead and make some announcements. But I think he has a short list of who he liked. Julie, what would you take when you heard the brother?
So, what year of his tenure is he in, like as mayor?
I mean, he's fairly new. I mean, it's like 2 years, maybe year or two.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. We experienced this like with Bloomberg in New York. And of course, my son's going to be banging on the door at this very moment. Hold on.
It's all good. We got you. We're fine. You can let the boy in. Go do your mom thing. Here's the thing, and I'm not mad at you, not mad at it. But let me say this before we go to that question, right? Because again, Jubilee wasn't here for the early part. Like, if you have a financial a board that has that is bringing in fiscal expertise, that is saying these are the ramifications, and it is highly documented. It is so well documented around just districts across the country claiming that they don't have money, running out of money. David and I have been a part of that firsthand. And you have to pay these pensions, and you are lock in step with the union. And then the board you appointed, your people all step down in mass. And this is I hear you. I don't know if this has ever happened in history, let alone in a linchpin city, one of the largest cities in the most expensive country in the world. I just don't know if that's happened. I don't know if it's happened.
So question. So are you saying that the people stepped down because they knew this guy was coming, or that the guy came and he...
No. We got to catch you up. Hold on.
Yes,
I feel like we're gossiping right now, David. I got to give you these facts.
Thank you.
In Chicago, it has been a merely the mayor runs Chicago public schools. They used to be able to appoint people. These are his people. The CPS, the superintendent said, we can't afford this union contract. We will not be doing that. We will not endorse that. Mayor Johnson asked him to step down. He did not. The board stuck by the superintendent, not their friend Mayor Johnson, to the point where all 7 of them stepped down. And now Chicago is going from a 7-person board to a half and half board of 21 board members, 10 to be democratically elected and 11 to be appointed by the mayor's office. This is crazy. And if a boards have 2 jobs in America for people that don't know. It's to hire, fire, supervise the superintendent, and to make sure we are fiscally prudent and fiscally fit. So the board is saying, hey, Jubilee, I love you. Thank you for putting me on the board, dog. But you are batshit crazy to the point that this is untenable and I am leaving. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is like the Super Bowl right now. Like, this is crazy.
So it's a $300 million loan that the
700 to pay back.
$300 million loan that the mayor is suggesting that they take. Right, it's a high interest loan, interest rate somewhere between 6 and 9%. Even on the low end, if it's a 6.5% interest rate, you're looking at an interest amount when it's fully repaid of $20 million. These are astronomical numbers, right? And that's not even to do anything new. That's for regular employment liabilities, pensions, just to keep the lights on, basically.
Yes. It is crazy. So, Julie, I didn't want to stop you in the middle of your answer. I just wanted to make sure you had a few more facts before you're on record. And again, there are some people that are fully behind him. He did that talk in the Southside church, not too far from where I live, about maybe 20 minutes or so, like that. He has, some of the biggest pastors. He has done his networking job. He is a former activist. He was very active during Rahm Emanuel's tenure, and he's been very vocal. He is a very vocal CTU, he supports the union. He is one of those people. In fact, I'm pretty sure he probably knows some of the people that got sent from Chicago public schools to Oakland in the middle of contract negotiations to come and rebel rouse here. It is crazy, bro. It is so crazy. But let me be professional. And let's just jump into this first question. So with all that being said, right? What does the mass resignation of the school board signal about the power dynamics between the mayor and public education leaders in that city? Come on, man. What does that tell you when that happens at that scale? Go ahead. We're going to start with you, David. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you.
Yeah. No, I think my answer is very brief. I think what it says is that that the mayor is incredibly disconnected from reality, right? From reality of and that's granted, it's a big job,
huge,
to run the city of Chicago. You imagine running, and the mayor doesn't run the school district, but the mayor, has historically appointed the school board. There's heavy, deep financial connections, and so it's a big part of the job of the mayor also to oversee major aspects of the school district in Chicago. So huge job. I get it. But it clearly seems like he's lost the plot. He's disconnected. I think there was also a letter that was written by hundreds of administrators working within the school system to say, like, no, you need to keep Pedro Martinez, right? They didn't want to see him go, right? Martinez is like an instructional leader. Right. So the school leaders in the system are probably feeling things a little bit differently. And they're like, why in the world would you want to get rid of this guy? They understand that it's political. So, yeah.
Yes. Ju, what about you? What does this say when something on this scale happens, that type of mass resignation?
I mean, I guess, they believe what they believe. They believe that, dude is crazy. They don't see promise in the plan. They don't back him. And it's probably a lopsided, power dynamic. I'm just curious because I'm just like, yeah, okay, it's a lot of money, but I would love to know like what the rollout of this plan was supposed to be. Okay, you take the loan from who and pay it back how and when, and if this is in favor of teachers, because that's what I'm reading, right? This loan is to pay for teachers' expenses, right? Not like to pay back something that is already owed. Then it sounds like he's in favor of teachers getting what they deserve. So I just have a bunch of questions. Like,
well, okay. Yeah.
Why do they think that he's so crazy?
What?
Or
it's not that they don't. Okay. Let's backpedal. Let's get the details in. This is a favorable group to the mayor, this board. What happens is, and again, I worked in a superintendent's office and David runs schools, right? Like and he was in when we were going through all that stuff. You have people, you have staff, and then you sometimes have outside financial adjusters or people to kind of help you understand what you can do. When you're in the middle of negotiations with the union, everybody's brought into the table. So they want their 9%, the district wants 4% year over year. They're going to go back and forth or whatever the case is, usually meet somewhere in the middle. But this has been an ongoing issue in Chicago public schools for years and years, where what districts will do, because one, urban superintendents, I think the tenure is less than 3 years, something like that. Two, this is mayoral control, right? So that's why David said, well, what year of the 5-year plan are you in? Because usually when a new mayor comes in or a new superintendent comes in, a new plan tends to come with them, right? So what is happening is this favorable group that loves Mayor Johnson, they listened to their financial advisors and said, this is untenable. So what districts will do, we did it in Oakland. We will not have enough money for something. Somebody will come and pump a one-time loan into the budget. But what we call that is what is it? Not foundational deficit. What do we use?
Structural.
It's a structural deficit. It's structural, meaning that if as long as you got more money going out than coming in and ADA is dropping and these things are happening, we can't do all of these things. And to which the union will always say, you can find the money, find it, go get it, right? Like, so
yeah,
it's not that they don't believe in this person. It's that these people who are his friends are listening to professionals. In California, we had FMAT or the FIGMAT? What was it that
FIGMAT? Yeah,
it was FIGMAT. And then what the union did, as soon as they heard what they didn't want to hear from the financial advisor that the state made us have, they said, well, this person's crazy. They're in cahoots. They don't know what they're talking about. It's just paper napkin math and things like that. So the issue isn't if people think he's crazy. The issue is that there's the payback and the plan, all that stuff is laid out. You can see that. You can find that. Like, that's why they made comment of it in the article. But the issue is a larger, broader issue. It's like, how far will you go to appease the teachers union? And again, David is making some very key points. So David is saying, just for the record, this infusion of cash some might go to, salaries, but a lot is going to have to go to pensions. A lot is going to have to go here. And at minimum, best case scenario, you're going to pay X amount of dollars in repaying this loan. But here's the thing. School districts and cities and states and countries don't often just pay loans back. It's usually not how that works, right? That's why you're hearing these inflated figures of a $300 million loan turn into $600 million or whatever, because there's this thing called compound interest. So how fiscally responsible are we going to be? And if you were one of the people that criticized Chicago for having to close 50 schools, again, I know that that's a painful thing for a community to have to go through. But part of the reason that you have to make those cuts is because you just get to a place like Oakland where the state has to come in and take over. The state said you have more school buildings and seats than you have children. You cannot continue to do this. And by the way, you have to open those buildings up to charter kids as well, because as a public entity, we need your help here. And people still fought them. And you know what happened? We almost went into receivership again. So it is, again, David, you called it right. This is a very, very nerdy show. But I feel like this is one of the times for the nerds where the headline is made its way into the mainstream. Like, this is shit me and you talk about, like, just when, and nobody eavesdrops on this conversation at Pete's Coffee because it's boring to them. But this is like our World Series, David. So, like,
yeah.
And
yeah, Jubilee, to answer your question, Jubilee, the money, and so they're talking about a $300 million loan, high yield loan. The district is already in the red, somewhere in the area of like 500 million. So this is just not even like covering the entire gap. But it would come from like a JP Morgan Chase, and these people don't play around. I mean, if you don't repay your loans, your debt costs go up. They can run into like state and federal intervention. You can start to freeze pensions and salaries down the road. Like, these are all very real things. It's not, I mean, it sounds like it's monopoly money, but at the end of the day, like, it's not monopoly money. It's real money. And I just think it's such a huge, there are large urban school districts across the country that have figured out how to manage their finances. So I don't know what's so different about a New York, an Oakland, a San Francisco, a Chicago, a Portland, other than the fact that these cities where these school districts exist are also, they also happen to be associated with some of the most like radical teacher unions, right? That just don't seem to understand basic finance, whether it be, and we're not even talking about corporate finance. We're talking about basic, like, public finance. You have to, at the end of the day, you have to figure out how to balance what comes in with what goes out. And there's this mentality that there's just always more money. We just got to get more money. We got to lobby our politicians, because if our politicians don't support us, we're going to take our union vote elsewhere to somebody else that will. That's what happened with this mayor of Chicago. He was elected by unions, right? And so he's doing his job, not as mayor of Chicago, but he's doing his job according to the people that elected him to be there. And again, like, I haven't heard like one person talking about the fact that, still in Chicago for Black children, you're still looking at a 15 to 20% proficiency rate for math and ELA, and for Latino kids about 20%, right? The system is still failing children. And I don't see a plan for how all this extra money is going to fix it, right? It's going to create a lot of jobs. It's going to sustain a lot of jobs. It's going to guarantee that people that have these crazy pensions will continue to be able to have their pensions, right? But again, like, what about the kids? Yeah.
What about learning and teaching and reading?
That is, I mean, I guess today all I'm going to have is questions, right? But that is the question, right? Like, how, I wonder if this was going to be leveraged to increase some of that. Like, and again, all I can think of is like my experience in New York, but I don't hear that there was a new contract being negotiated. But I know when raises came, right, over time, it was like, okay, well, your day used to end at this time, and now it's going to end at this time, or right. There were like certain trade-offs that were given, or that had to be given, in order for the raise to be, approved. So I just wonder, right? Like I you know me, Charles says you never choose a side, but I don't know. I wonder if this is an opportunity to kind of to become the dawning of a new day. And like I understand that it's fiscally, irresponsible. They're in a deficit, like all that stuff. So that's dangerous, right? That's dangerous. We don't want that. But on the flip side, if we're having a conversation about what we're giving to unions, essentially, to me, at the core of that is teachers, and that we have vacancies all over the country, right? Teachers who are burnt out. They've been burnt out before COVID. They're more burnt out now. Can't get a STEM teacher, a math teacher to save your life, a SPED teacher to save your life. So it's like, is there a window of opportunity there to leverage this for the sake of children, right? If it's totally and holistically only for unions, then no, shame on you, right? Because that's for the adults. But if
the union is always talking about teacher salaries and stuff, like, so it's not that's their job. But so Chicago is different. Pensions are not just the school districts. It is also police. It's also fire. Like, and if you run out of, like, you cannot just continue to get loans into perpetuity, and you are now starting to encroach on my cousin that passed away last year or a few years ago that was helping me rebuild this house was a firefighter. He never cared about what was happening in CPS ever. He get a teacher's more money, do it, and then he gets a letter. Hey, this may potentially impact your pension and whatever. So now you want to take out another $300 million loan against that for other departments? Things will shut down. Like, cities can go bankrupt. Cities have gone bankrupt. And this pension thing, I'm trying to, I get what you're saying. I just, like, this is such a larger, here's a search. A quick search shows Chicago's pension debt continues to rise, increasing $1.8 billion in 2023 to $37.2 billion. And now you want to, and now that was our show. Now you want to ask for more. And here's the, like, now you want to ask for more to the point where your people, Jubilee, you are the mayor. You appointed Charles and David to your education board. We are there because of you. And we are telling you, we will not fire that man. We will not go with you, because this is beyond the pale of fiscal responsibility. Then it is negotiated that in the new format, it won't be 11-11. It won't be 10-10. It will be 11 mayoral candidates, mayoral appointees to 10 democratically elected people. So you always have a majority. What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? So again, I'm not taking glee in what's going to potentially happen with kids and students and things like this. What I am so why does my voice is like this is because David and I have done this type of work. Like, we have seen it. We have, like, and when you're on the outside, that's why so many parents and students march with the teachers union. We get it. We understand it. We know it. When you're on the inside and we kind of know it and things like that, then you start to see functions. You start to see ed code. You start to see what the numbers look like. You start to see what the ramifications are going to be. By the way, that mayor will not be around for when the ramifications actually hit, or that superintendent won't be around for it. We've seen it happen. It is just mind-boggling that we are seeing this play out. So this usually happens behind the scenes. This usually happens in other ways, but for it to be such a public spectacle, because it's so egregious, is like, so I get you. You can be on both sides, but I really just want to make sure you understand the details. I'm
on the side of the kid. I'm just like, so this has not been approved, right?
Not yet. Yeah, still. I think there's still lots of negotiations to happen. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, they left, right? So maybe they feel like it's a high probability that it will be. Because why?
I mean, I think he's appointed his new school board.
He got a school board that's going to do what he wants to do. So yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you saying they quit, correct?
Yes.
They quit, but
they quit.
I understand what you're saying, but
they quit. They all stepped down, which until January. It's still a 7-person board till January.
Okay.
He has appointed a new board that can vote on this before January. I am more than sure, without being there, that in the vetting process, he said, David Castillo, this is what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
I need you to vote yes on this. Will you vote yes?
I get that.
So that is what's happening.
Okay.
I think the going back to like what Jubilee was talking about and what I was talking about, what we all are talking about in terms of student outcomes, right? Like what is the benefit to students for all of this? It's interesting because what we hear from the Chicago Teachers Union, and you'll hear this from like the LA, UTLA, the OEA, the New York Teachers Association, AFT, NEA, their biggest like taglines when they talk about what they stand for, they do talk about children, but really they talk about resources and jobs, right? So we hear mainly is like class size reduction. So we need more staffing to have smaller class size. I'll get there in a second. The new thing now is like community schools, having community schools with wraparound services, et cetera, et cetera. And what we also hear from, kind of these more like extreme minded teachers unions are, we don't have enough money. We don't have enough resources. And at the same time, you're not going to close our schools. So we're going to be like 0 school closures. And also we're going to push really hard on no new charter schools, which is happening in Chicago too.
Absolutely.
Right? Look at
absolutely.
the Noble Network is like one of the shining examples.
And that's where I'll be on November 1st doing the last leg of the new Niagara, by the way.
I mean, they're like one of the shining examples in the country, and they are having an incredibly hard time, getting their renewals in place, because part of this whole package thing is like anti-charter also, right? Mm-hmm. And so not really talking about kids, but really trying to propagate a system, right, through flooding it with more resources.
Right.
And I will say, if you look at even the best studies on class size reduction, you could do your research. There have been not so many studies on class size reduction, but there, a big one out of Tennessee, out of California. The big takeaway is like there is some impact primarily at the early elementary grades. After that, it's really mixed, and it's hard to tell if it's actually class size reduction. So, for all of the talk, and I know this is, this is like sacrilege, right? The evidence on class size reduction, with the exception of the early elementary grades, is still very mixed. So when these school systems and the unions want more money for smaller class sizes, like there's no solid evidence or research to back up that argument. But people don't care, because if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a student, sure, people want smaller class sizes. Does it actually benefit children? It's hard to say. It's hard to say, unless you're talking about early elementary. And that's just what the research tells us, to kind of separate the emotional argument versus what the research says about class size reduction. There you go.
Right. So unpopular take. Right. And here's the thing. I mean, we may have to cover this again. I am so sure it will be on the top of national headlines again soon, because I know we only got about 10 minutes left. But I mean, this, again, we are witnessing a moment in history together. Like, this is stuff that will be discussed 40 years from now, 50 years from now. Like, there will be books written about this. There will be, I mean, this man is about to live in infamy, good or bad or indifferent. Again, and I think Mayor Johnson is somebody who has really pure intentions. I think he comes from like that world of activism and things like that. I also think that when you get in this part of power and you start to see information that wasn't accessible to you before, sometimes you got to make an adjustment. Because his people that loved and trusted him saw those numbers, saw those terms, saw the pension stuff. Like, we haven't even dove into just on your own for some fun Sunday reading. I'll buy the wine for each of you. I'll send it to you. I'll Apple Cash you something, right? So you can buy wine and do this. just read up on the pension looming issue and what impact that's going to have to this city. And when Chicago gets impacted, almost like New York and LA, Illinois gets impacted. Parts of the country get impacted if parts of Chicago have to shut down. Listen, man, any state where the mayor is more popular and well-known than the governor, you got to be able to hit this stuff kind of out the park. Because I promise you more people know who the mayor of New York is than they do who the governor of New York is. Same here in Chicago. So, you know, I think it's really interesting.
Sorry, I'm on mute because Meadow's going nuts over here. And so.
Because Meadow know this shit is crazy. He agrees.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've learned a lot today. Let's see if she'll hush because I just can't even do it.
Oh,
I know.
Well, real quick, before you give that, and Meadow is going to help me introduce. We have to take a quick commercial break because we do have obligations here before we out. But Meadow, go ahead and give us a bark to introduce our commercial break. Go ahead.
Look, right now she's going to be quiet.
It's all good. Meadow knows that she's a part of the show. Here we go.
Today's episode of BS3 Network is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's is going to McDonald's and creating a universe for longtime fans of both McDonald's and anime. I love sauce on my McNuggets and can't wait to try the savory chili McDonald's sauce. It's savory, chili, and bold. For decades, across various episodes and genres, McDonald's has shown up in the anime world and most commonly called McDonald's. McDonald's will be bringing the McDonald's world to life with episodic shorts and manga comics. For a limited time, anime fans will have the opportunity to experience their favorite fictional restaurant. You have until March 25th to try the new savory chili McDonald's sauce with your 10-piece chicken nuggets.
So they got to fix that because it's been back on. So it's not till May. You got some time. I'll get the new dates, but you can go and get the nice little anime meal from McDonald's. I have nothing but love to the anime crowd because I really don't want no smoke with them. Thank you for great television. That you do not want beef with that group of people. So, and now that they got the McDonald's deal, yes. But yes, going to your final thoughts, Juve. You were reflecting on what you learned, and your dog was, being a part of the show.
Yes, I was trying. I mean, I have a lot of questions. Clearly, I'm still learning about how all this stuff works, but I am also curious. Like, I don't want him to bankrupt the city, and I get that it's a dangerous proposition that he's made. But I'm also interested in seeing what happens if this all gets approved. This is a story that I will definitely be paying attention to. So,
gotcha. David.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting topic. Chicago does come in number one, in general across the board when we look at school systems that are facing some kind of a fiscal crisis. So that's why we're talking about Chicago. It's, in terms of their deficits, they're like number one for sure. Number two would be the Los Angeles Unified School District, right? Different issues, but same fiscal issues, mismanagement, California, pension, healthcare for retirees. Philadelphia, number three, Detroit Public Schools, and then number five. You ready, Charles?
Is it Oakland, California?
Oakland Unified School District, yeah. And so these issues are not
again, because I think one is significantly smaller than the rest. So say that again.
Chicago,
huge.
LA, Philly,
huge.
Detroit,
huge.
Oakland.
Yeah, Detroit might be smaller, but I think all of those places are larger than Oakland. So interesting.
Yep. So this issue is not going to go away anytime soon. I think and it's really a political issue. And so I hope that our political leaders can figure this out. I think Jubilee's also right. maybe this is a moment to figure out, what is it going to actually take to get the job done. But I'm also hesitant to say, like, people. I just think it's bad practice for state governments or state public entities to be taking out loans in the hundreds of millions of dollars with high interest attached to them from the likes of JP Morgan Chase or whatever that it might be. I just think that's peak. I don't know. That's like the end is near, right? The system is about to collapse. So, and again, like I said earlier, before you got here, Jubilee, the city of Oakland is facing, its own separate issues right now with a huge budget crisis that has been mismanaged. And they also did the same thing where they thought they had a, golden ticket. The golden ticket turned out to not be so gold. And at the end of the day, residents of that city are going to suffer because they're going to have to slash, fire services, libraries, police, et cetera, in a city that's already under, under investment. So, I mean, for me, a lot of it comes down to just accountability for public officials, managing budgets. I think we can learn a lot from the corporate world and apply that into our public systems. And, I'm not pro-union, I'm not anti-union, but I think in certain areas, we just need to get real and serious about how much influence any one particular group has. So we don't end up, where we are right now with this example in Chicago. So there you go.
Yeah, man, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's crazy. I think it is a watershed moment. This did not happen in a vacuum. There's decades and decades and decades of things that have led up to these moments around power and how power is yielded and, what happens and how you keep that power. I went from there from strikes being a not very often thing in my lifetime to being something that I felt like got brought up almost every year, every other year, especially in Oakland. I think people should pay attention, especially when it's a public good that is paid for by taxpayers. And it's meant to serve your kids, and a product is not necessarily what it needs to be, because what the rhetoric will be is that, well, we need this to better serve your kids, but there's going to just be a different excuse when those test numbers don't come up, when that literacy numbers and numeracy numbers don't come up. And if you want to be in a field that where you don't have a lot of oversight and money flows, maybe you should try education, because that's what this is kind of like indicating for people. There are other industries that if a tenth of this was happening, like it's just not going down. It's just not happening. And, and I also think that sometimes, and not that I don't have my general distrust of authority figures, but usually when authority figures that specialize in a field that you do not, and then they tell you something, and then your friends that you handpicked who love you and care about you and that you trusted enough to appoint them and put your name behind, turns their back on you in very, very public, unprecedented fashion, maybe there's some credence to it. So, but we like drama, not we. The society that we're in likes drama. The internet needs it. Twitter and X and YouTube fiend for catchy headlines. Well, damn it, you're gonna get all that in these proceedings and what happens here. And I really, really feel bad for my fellow folks that actually have to live in the Chicago borders. I'm not in the Chicago borders. I'm just outside. But it looks like it's gearing up to be a lot more of the same. And that makes me sad. But for Omar, for Jubilee, for David, I am Charles. You have listened to another episode of the South Star Classroom. Class will be a session again next week. Same bad time, same bad station. But until then, you all take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Jubilee, do the homework, okay? We love you. Y'all take care. Peace out.